Hi all. Sorry I couldn't be at the faculty meeting yesterday because of technical difficulties. So I thought I would just record what I was going to say. I will send this slideshow to you as well so you can review it more slowly, but I wanted to tell you where I got all the data from. So this is going to review the new standards that we put in place starting this semester. Now, I will let you know what actually happened is what we said would happen, and that is that we would apply both the new standards and the previous standards to all the students' records that were identified and pick whichever standard treated them better or benefited the student and apply that. But I wanted to show you the data if we applied the new standard versus the old standard. So here's if we applied the new standard at the end of fall 2020, which remember is all about failures. So if the student had 1 to 2 failures, they would be on academic warning. And if they have more than 2 failures, they would be suspended. There's no probation with this new standard. So, as you can see, here is what would have happened had we applied the new standard straight up. I don't think I need to go through this, but you'll see in total we would have had 26 students in warning, 7 students in suspension. Oh, they'd be suspended. That sounds fun, but it isn't fun to be suspended. And then in total, we'd have 33 students in the College of Pharmacy that would be in some sort of academic action or would not be in good standing. So I just graphed this out. So we're going to have more graphs. So you sometimes people learn visually. And as percentages of the students, we can see here that 9% of the whole student body would be in warning, 2% of the whole student body in suspension, and 11% in some sort of academic trouble. Here I've split them up by cohort, so you can see the new system hits the first years a little bit harder, which isn't totally surprising to probably any of us, but we would have had 11 P1s in trouble, 7 of them on warning, and 4 of them on suspension, and obviously you can read through the rest of this. Now, one thing I need to point out here is on the P5s. I use the new system as if when we will see it next year, and I didn't do that, so I'll tell you when I did sort of maybe something that wasn't that you need to consider when comparing these two systems. The P5s next year, everybody will be under the same. We won't have any change for the P5s and the P6s. All the students will be under the same academic rules. So again, if we applied the new standards without the graduate level school rules, which are applied this semester, we would have had 1 under warning, but we instead had to have 6 on probation because of the graduate school rules. But next year at this time, if this were happening with these grades, we would have 1 P5 in warning. And here's the percentages of the class. So as you can see, those first 2 years are definitely rougher, and then moving through the cohorts. We hope by the time they're P5s, they have it pretty much figured out. Here's failure by course. Now, this is the first time we've had this information, and I have to tell you, for the first and second year classes, this is by the numbers, I'm sorry, the numbers is definitely correct. So these are the numbers of students that failed each course, so that we can monitor that. So this tells you the number of students that have failed each of the classes. And then here's the approximate percentage of students failing per course. The reason it's the approximate, for any of the pharmacy classes, it's actual data, but for the for the P1s and P2s, I didn't have the data of how many pharmacy students were in each class. So for most of these, it should have been the whole cohort, but remember, some of the P1s and P2s are off a little bit, so the percentages may be off because I didn't have the number of pharmacy students in Biology 152, although I would have thought all the P1s would be in Biology 152. So that's the assumption I made. It may or may not be correct. But again, we see the trouble spots for students. So now if we look at the prior method that we had before this fall, which was based upon GPA, so you can see that nobody would have been suspended, and that's probably because last semester's rule changes on how the grades were assigned. We didn't have anybody coming in that was already on probation, so with the new rules, you can see that we would have had 22 on warning and 22 on probation. And here's where I was inconsistent. I put a little star here because 6 were on probation because of the rules, not necessarily because of the system. I'll have the real data for you in a little bit. I should have updated this graph or this table. So 44 in total students would have not been on some sort of academic, or would be not in good standing. Here's what we actually assigned. When we combined the two and picked the more favorable standard for the student, we ended up with only 28 in any type of academic action, 16 in warning, and 12 on probation. So you can see the spread here. It's fairly evenly spread through the years, although heavy on the P1s and P2s. I should say P1s in this case. So now if we compare the systems, here's the gold bars are the assigned, what we actually did when we combined the two. The burgundy are the new system if we had gone with the new system, and the orange are the old system. So as you would expect, what we actually assigned this semester is the least of the three as far as a number in trouble because of taking the favorable assignment for the students. So again, this is comparing as far as percentage of students, and you can see that, as you might expect, the new system is heavy on warning, and there's nobody on probation in the new system because that's not a category that we can assign to. So you can see that there are fewer percentage of students that are in academic trouble in the new system versus the old system, and more on warning. Now, there's more in suspension with the new one, but I would guess that those suspended students, if they wanted to continue, would be allowed to in probation in most cases. All right, the number of students not in good standing by cohort. So this is by cohort, so this just spreads it all out. So if you look at the P1 data, W is for warning, P for probation, S for suspension. So again, the new are the gold bars, and old is the burgundy bars. And this is the percentage of the class that is not in good standing. And this just compares those two charts together. Now, this is what I think probably you want to spend more time thinking about. And so what I did was I looked at each student. So there were 55 students in total that were picked up by either the old or the new rules as being not in good standing. So how did they differ when we compared them? 21 would have been in good standing in the new, but they wouldn't have been in the old system. So 15 of those 21 would have been on warning in the old system, but would have been good standing on the new system, and 6 were on probation when they would have been in good standing in the new system. So 21 would not have had any academic flagging, but would have been either in warning or probation in the old system. There were 7 that would have been warning in the new system, but probation in the old. So that's 28 students that would benefit from the new system. And then here's the other way. So there's 2 sides to every story. So there were 11 students that would have been in good standing in the old system, but they're on warning in the new. So this was many students that failed one class, but had a grade point above, or I'm sorry, on warning, let's see, good standing, yeah, but had a grade point above 3 point. So they failed one class, but they had above a 3 point. That's pretty much who those 11 were. And there were 2 warnings in the old system, but that would have been suspended in the new system. Again, remember, a warning in the old system was having a grade point between 2.75 and 3.0, and they would have been suspended in the new because they failed 3 classes. But they were probably older students that had enough GPA oomph to be able to absorb the 3 Fs, 3 or 4, I think they were all 3 Fs. So these were actually, I'm pretty sure, P4s. And then there were 5 students that were on probation in the old system when they would have been suspended in the new. And again, remember, there is no probation in the new system. So they would have probably gone right to the new system, or suspended. So these people failed more than 2 classes. But again, probably had enough GPA cushion to absorb some of it. Okay. And then there were 9 that were on warning in both systems. So, I'm sorry, so I should have said there were, 18 students that benefited from the old system versus the new system. So that's the 55 in total. Also, the new grad rules. Here's where I probably should have done this throughout. So on because of the grad rules, there are 6 P5s on probation. In the new system, there would have been 1 on warning, and in the old system, there would have been 2 on probation and 4 on warning. And that's it. So I'll let you look through that yourself. If you have any questions, let me know.